Hello, and welcome to our first episode. Today, we're going to be talking about the Gottman Method, which we both use with our couples. So, Tori, you want to start us off by
Yeah.
giving a little background?
Sure. So John and Julie Gottman, they're husband and wife. They're researchers and practitioners based out of Seattle, Washington, and they've been researching what makes a happy couple for the past 40 years. So it's through that research that they've crafted these really incredible skills and tools to help couples, maybe like yourselves, navigate challenges. So they talk about communication problems, conflict management, intimacy, you name it. I find the methodology to be so practical, intuitive. It just makes a lot of sense to a lot of folks, and provides a bit of a roadmap. So if you're not really knowing where to go, or you're finding that you're stuck, I find it's a really great approach that tells you some things that you can do instead, right? Like it's one thing to find out that you're doing something wrong, but it's another thing to know, well, what can I do about this, right? A lot of tips and tricks and little things that you can change. The Gottmans are famous for their saying small things often. So it's about making little changes over time that are sustainable. Sustainability is so important in a therapeutic modality, because if it doesn't work with your life, then there's really no point, right? So we want to make sure that the gains that you see in therapy are going to be long lasting. And so that's really important to Cassandra and I as we work with our clients. I'm just thinking, like, what else can I say? There's so much to say. There's so many books. There's lots. You can find yourself going down a rabbit hole if you do a simple Google search. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. It's something I talk about all day, every day. So, Cassandra, do you have any questions to start us off?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious to know what is it that you really like about the Gottman Method when you're using it with couples?
Yeah, I think as like a practitioner, I like how it provides a roadmap. I like how I love how it's scientifically proven to be effective. I really love that as like a science background myself. I really enjoy having that as like the framework for the methodology. But like I said, like practicality, like you have to be able to have something to implement, right? Like my clients are looking for actionable items, I think, and they don't want to just have a conversation. They don't want to just sit on your couch and have a conversation. They want to have takeaways, right? And so what I appreciate is pretty much the whole methodology is takeaways, in my opinion. And so in my work, I give homework. I know it has a bad rap, but like what you do outside of therapy session is so important. It holds you accountable to the work. I'm blabbering now. So what do you like? What do you like about it?
No, that I agree with pretty much everything you had to say about that.
Yeah.
I think I really like it, not only like you were saying, it provides a roadmap. But I also really like that it provides a sense of hope, because you get certain couples that come in and sometimes it's, they're at their worst, they're at their lowest,
They're in crisis.
And can be incredibly overwhelming, I think, for them to come in and lay it all out very honestly, and to have the ability to give them some nugget of hope, or just anything really, when a lot of times, at least from my experience, it seems that they've been trying before even coming to us. Right. So then they've hit a wall, and we're there to sort of,
unstuck.
Like hand out a ladder for them. I don't know if that makes sense, but like give them a hand up in the world, basically.
Exactly.
And so I think that's really what I like about it. I like also that there's a we mentality in the Gottman Method.
There is.
Where we're a team, right? We're working towards something. We're trying to work on our strengths, and not that you're not looking at the past, but I think sometimes with some like couples modalities that I've seen before, it's very much, let's pick the issue to death.
Right.
Instead of it being, okay, well, this is the issue. It's not changing.
Right. Exactly.
So what do we do about that? And how can we put things in place to lessen the stress of it?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I get
that's
that.
why.
Totally. No, that makes perfect sense. I agree with you too. Forward thinking, like what can we do about it, right? So going back to the strategies and skills, like it's one thing to identify the issue and then understand it, of course, to get to the root of it. And then, well, what are we going to do differently to yield those results? And I, like you said, going back to being hopeful, I think clients are like, okay, this is something I can do. And then I find clients see change right off the bat. Like that's something a lot of clients ask me in our initial like consultation is how often are we going to have to meet for how long? And it's, of course, that's a super hard question to ask a clinician after a meeting for like 15 minutes. Like, how can you tell? But I find like the more dedicated you are to the work, the more you're going to get out of it, which is intuitive, right? That's with anything in life. But like you said, it's hopeful. It provides a roadmap to go forward and lots of takeaways.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else you got written there?
What else I got on my piece of paper here? So what, the big question, the big conflict, we'll start there.
Sure, let's do it.
What do you do with a couple who is conflict avoidant?
It's a good question. Conflict avoidant. So maybe we should describe what that is, first of all, maybe.
Probably be helpful.
Yeah.
In case you don't know.
Just thinking. So conflict avoidant, I guess it's self-explanatory, but it's people who don't want to address issues for whatever reason. Now, it could be a bunch of different reasons. I'm just like thinking back in my mind to what I'm noticing frequently with my clients is that they don't feel safe. They don't feel emotionally safe to talk to their partner about whatever it is. So then they don't talk about it. And we could say that's conflict avoidant, right? I'm not going to talk to you about this because I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So I'm going to just pull back. Like maybe I'm going to withdraw. Maybe I'm going to suppress things. And then we all know that's really bad because that's going to cause resentment. Your needs aren't going to be met. But what is conflict avoidant? I think it's just you don't want to address the issue for whatever reason. And typically I find it's because people don't feel like their partner is going to get it or they think they're going to get dismissed and there's no point. So why would you? Right? Why would you open up?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's where I see a lot of it too. And I would also add more recently I've noticed that there are couples that if there's an element of conflict avoidance, there is also an element of not wanting to rock the boat. I don't know if that maybe kind of ties into what you were saying a bit too. No,
that's pretty much it, right?
But it is this idea of not wanting, and whether that's like what they experienced with their families, like how they, you know, what was modeled to them.
How they were brought up,
or whether it was just something they kind of developed over time. But yeah, I noticed the sort of not wanting to rock the boat, so to speak, I guess, to bring up, and I'm sure, that safety does sort of play a big key role in that.
Well, they're like walking on eggshells, right? Like I don't want to rock the boat, so I'm gonna like play it cool. Maybe I'm not gonna bring things up, and then
or it's like I'll sort of tell you what's going on, but then I'll like tiptoe. But I'll sort of sandwich it between two nice things. Where it's like you're not gonna hurt the other couple, and if you do, then you talk about it.
Right. But maybe they don't feel like they're safe enough to talk about it.
100%. Right?
Yeah. So how does this play into the Gottman methodology then, right? Like what would we do?
Great question.
Right.
Tori.
Sorry to put you on the spot. You didn't write that one down.
I didn't write that one down. No, that's okay. I think for me, when I see that, I try to address it kind of head on and say, like, this is kind of what I'm seeing when you guys are communicating. I'm seeing sort of a conflict avoidant style.
So you name it.
I do. Yeah. And do you guys see that when you guys are trying to communicate?
Right.
How do you guys see that? And what do you think that means? And then I try to circle back to, sometimes it can mean a lack of safety, like you were saying. And how do you create that safety with each other?
Yes.
Because even just outside of like communicating about daily things, like even just intimacy level, you really can't be intimate with someone on a, in intimacy in this case, it can be on a spectrum.
Of course.
And so,
but like closeness is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. You really can't be intimate with someone without having a level of trust
Exactly.
And when that's not there, it's
You're not going to get to
yeah,
that rich, deep
it's a,
emotional connection.
yeah, exactly, which is basically what Gottman has you do.
Exactly. No, I love that. And I think I'm just going to add that some way that I explain this to clients, I think really makes a lot of sense. And me too, is that it kind of like an equation. So emotional safety. And what I mean by emotional safety being like, will I be heard when I talk? Will I be dismissed? Will they understand me? Or will this end in a fight, right? So like, are those present? Do I have that safety? And if I have that safety, well, maybe then I'm willing to be vulnerable. So we have emotional safety plus vulnerability equals deep emotional connection, right? So I need to be safe in order to be vulnerable. We need both of those things to get to that rich, deep emotional connection. Because if you guys aren't sharing, if you're only talking about surface level things, that's how deep your emotional relationship's going to be, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're talking about logistics, you're raising kids together, you have a household, so maybe you're good at that, but maybe you're not good at talking about like your fears or like tough times, like what's going on with work or perpetual issues, right? Like a lot of people talk about finances being challenging and that type of thing. So yeah, if you don't have that safety, you're not gonna get to that rich, deep emotional connection.
Are there any like activities you have your clients do to increase like their intimacy or their connection in that way?
Yeah. So I think what I do initially is focus on that safety piece. So what is going to create that safety that I talked about? Like, how are we going to know that if I say something, I'm going to be heard? How do I know that, like, if I open my mouth, that you're not going to get defensive?
Yeah.
Right. And so oftentimes I initially start by talking about really good communication skills to like foster that foundation of safety. And within that, like Gottman skills, so we talk about the 4 horsemen, right? We got to keep the 4 horsemen out. We got to talk about like maybe a framework for conversational turn taking. So we talk about the Gottman rapport. And then we build on that, right? And you can talk more about compromise and like repair and that type of thing. But if you guys don't have that foundation of safety, there's no way you're going to open up, right? So that's where I think we got to start at the bottom and work our way up.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think regardless of if a couple comes for like just communication issues or if it's like, oh well, we don't have sex anymore kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think you do have to start with the communication and that trust building.
Absolutely.
One thing that I've started using recently it's called the 3-minute exercise.
Tell us more.
Tell us more. So it was in a great training, which I'm blanking on the name of the training, but maybe we can like
link it or something. Yeah.
But it was with this phenomenal sex therapist here in Ontario, and she was talking about utilizing basically what she'll have her couples do is ask each other 2 questions. So the one question is, what is something you would like to do for me, and what is something I would like you to do for me?
Okay, so is it communicating needs then?
Yes.
Like, what do I need from you? What do you need from me?
Yes. And so what you're doing, and it can be anything. It could be like if I ask my partner, what is something that I would like, or that you would like me to do for you? And then the partner goes, I'd like a cup of tea.
Sure.
Then I would go get him a cup of tea, or them a cup of tea. But it can also be, from sexual to like actual, a cup of tea.
Right.
And basically what it's doing is one, it's practicing listening to your partner's needs.
Yeah.
2, it's also helping with when there is a partner who isn't used to asking for their needs. And sometimes I see that a lot with like female clients who when they're asked to kind of put their pleasure on the back burner, and put like their partner's needs first, their children's needs first. And sure, to a certain degree, you do have to put your children first and your partner, but
you also have to consider yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And so that can really help when it can really help with couples that one partner does not ask for things ever, or feels guilty for asking for things. And also there's a caveat to that is if you can't do it, or like you don't have the emotional bandwidth to do it, you're allowed to say, no, I can't do that. But here's what we could do.
Yeah.
So you are also working on compromise in that too, and working on talking about what you're comfortable with and putting boundaries down.
I hear a lot of like Gottman stuff even within that,
Yeah.
right? Like I think about expressing your needs. The Gottmans talk about
Mhm.
that and trying to do that in a more intentional way, like being very
Yeah.
forthcoming, like the gentle startup.
Yeah, and I
Right?
like it because it's supposed to be playful, right? And I think if couples can be playful when they're trying to reconnect, I think that can go like a huge,
Oh, a very long way.
thank you, a very long way
Yeah,
to really regaining that connection.
absolutely. Yep. Yep. Maybe I should explain what the gentle startup is, just because I mentioned that briefly. So the gentle startup, it's based on the research how a conversation starts is predictive how it will end. So if you come in a bit more gentle, the odds are you're going to get more out of your partner. They're going to be more receptive to listening to you, but also your odds of being heard go up substantially, right? So it's 3 parts. It's I feel about what I need. I feel overwhelmed when I see a sink full of dishes. I need you to load them in the dishwasher as you go. That's far better than saying you're so messy.
Right.
Or you never do anything to help, right?
Or why do I always have to do this?
Exactly. So you're communicating your need at the very end of that gentle startup, which really tells your partner what you want them to do. So you want to express it in a positive way, which means something they can do versus something you don't want them to do, right? You're basically handing it to them saying, this is how you can succeed for me. This is how you can shine for me. And I think so many people crave that like direct communication. Like, I don't have a clue what you want from me. If I only knew, I could do it, right? And I appreciate what you said around, well, what happens if I can't? Like, what happens if it actually goes against a core principle of mine, or I just don't have the bandwidth, like you said, right? And so maybe it's saying, I would love to do that for you, but can I do it in 5 minutes after I send this quick work email or after I log off for work? It could be something like that, or just say no, which is really good communication to let your partner know, because otherwise they may think you're going to do it. And what happens when you don't, right? Like then trust is impacted.
Yep.
Exactly. So we have to follow through on the things we say we're going to do. And if you're not going to do them, you just need to say, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good, clear communication.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. I had other. Did you want to get into the sound relationship house?
Sure, if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk about it?
Do we? I'm assuming we can like link it, or do we?
Yeah,
Like the
sure.
actual like
The house, so people know what we're talking about?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
We're new to this and we're figuring it out as we
figure it
go.
out.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the Sound Relationship House is based off the 7 principles for making a marriage work, which is a book written by John Gottman, and someone else, I couldn't tell you who, but we could link that too. So the Sound Relationship House, it is a metaphorical house. It's basically your relationship in house format. So if you think about a house, you probably are thinking about the foundation of the house, and then you're thinking about building up, but then you're thinking about what are the load-bearing walls, like how does this even work? And so the 7 principles are really laid out within that. So do we want to talk about them individually, like what those levels are?
Yeah,
or...
maybe let's just focus on the side walls, the trust and commitment, and then the first one, which is love maps, right?
It is, yeah, you're right. So trust and commitment, I think that really alludes to everything we've been talking about thus far, is that emotional safety, right? So we're on a theme here. Trust, yeah, I don't even know what to say, but it's paramount, right? Commitment, on the other hand, I think is just, I'm committing to you. I'm committing to putting you first. And that's above everyone else. And the Gottmans would even say your children. Like you put your partner first above all else. Your kids are going to grow up one day. They're going to move out of the house. They're going to have their own families. Right. That certainly does not mean neglecting your children. Okay. So I've got to be clear about that.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go.
I was just gonna say, I sometimes when I will say that,
do they freak out?
A little bit, a little bit.
Same.
But what I've found can be helpful, is explaining like 2 different love bank accounts.
Oh, okay.
So the love bank account that you have for your partner, and the love bank account that you have for your children, or the love bank account you have for your friends and family, all different.
They're all separate.
Right? And so if you're taking from the bank account that is your partner, you're not depleting the bank account that's for your children, right? Or your family or friends. They're separate. They're completely different loves.
Right.
So you saying I'm going to put my partner first is not saying, well, my kids now have to suffer.
Exactly. That's
right?
exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. And so when I put it that way, when I try to get them to think about their love being in different accounts, for whatever reason, that really
it's a good
the visual.
Thank you.
Yeah. It seems to be a good visual for people to understand that I'm not asking you to, well, I'm sorry, Timmy, you're not allowed to do soccer because mom and dad need to have
date.
You're not saying that.
No.
I mean, you might need to, but no, I'm just kidding. But you are saying that if your partner needs a little extra love or a little extra support, that you are doing that.
Exactly. You're nourishing that relationship. You're making sure you're putting deposits in that bank account. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And then we'll probably talk about that later on, more deposits. But commitment, so putting your partner first, considering them in everything that you do, right? So I kind of break that down as like, imagine a little version of your partner on your shoulder at all times. Because life, in my opinion, is just a series of choices. What choice are you going to make? And is the choice that you're going to make putting your partner first? Is it going to help them? Is it going to like maximize their benefit? Or is it going to hinder them or put them down? Right? Because if any choice is going to put them down, you really need to reconsider it, right? Like, are there alternatives, that type of thing. So commitment, I think, is a commitment to try in the relationship, a commitment to try your best, and knowing that we're going to make mistakes, right? Yeah. I don't want to beat a dead horse with commitment.
No, I think that's really great. And I think, like without commitment and without the trust walls, right? I feel like you really can't then build safety. So
no, of course.
So I think that just to do a little call back to our original topic.
It's like we planned this.
It's like we did. We didn't plan this. There was a little bit of planning.
Yeah.
Okay. So then
the foundation. Love maps. So love maps, in my opinion, are, well, actually I have a lot to say about love maps, but I'm just thinking. Love maps are how well you know your partner's internal world. Right? Like if you, going back to visuals, right? A lot of people like visuals. Imagine like your partner's internal world. Do you know your way around? Like, can you drive around and do you know the neighborhoods? Do you know how to get around with ease? Or are you in uncharted territory and you don't know where you're going, right? So love maps can be really minute details, like what's your partner's favorite thing to do on the weekend, what's their favorite restaurant, favorite thing to eat, right? Those types of things. But they're also like, well, what is my partner's biggest fear? What are their aspirations? What do they like want to do with their life? What's important to them? Those types of things, right? And I'm going to ramble now, but what is, I find a lot in my younger couples, in my premarital couples, they actually have really strong love maps. And I think that's because they are really in their recent like time in their relationship where they're like dating, right? That's proximity. That's the word. Their proximity to dating is really short. So it's fresh, right? So then they just ask all those questions, first dates, dating someone, you're asking those questions. What's your family like? What do you like to do? What are your interests? So then you have these up-to-date love maps where you can navigate. Now, of course, in our work, we see couples from all like the lifespan, right? So then you see people have been married for 20 years.
Right.
And what happens if they don't update their love maps?
Gets pretty stale pretty quickly.
Well, you don't know your way around, right? So how can you choose to put your partner first, again, going back to that, if you don't even know like what they like or what they like, what serves them, right? So you need to update your love maps. And I think John Gottman says you should update them like twice a year or something like that. So, because people change, right? Like you can imagine if you are a young couple who are recently together and like getting a house together or moving in together, things are going one way in their life. Things are certain things are more important. Maybe it's more school oriented or something. But then what happens when you have kids? Now all of a sudden my needs change and like maybe even my likes change. going back to like the sex therapy stuff and intimacy, like my body changes, right? After having a
100%.
child.
Yep.
And so maybe like the things that I liked pre-child are different post-child,
Yeah.
right? And so it's really important to renew those love maps. How do you renew love maps? I think it's simple as asking questions.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I also like when I'm discussing love maps, and just, sex therapy in general, I like to kind of use an example that I heard in a training once where think about when you were first dating and let's say you guys are living separately.
Yeah.
And you make plans for one partner to come over to your house, right? Or and so what do you do when you get home from work, right? First of all, well, even before you get home from work, right? You have a build-up. Maybe you're texting each other.
Sure,
like,
calling on the way home.
Yeah, can't wait to see you. Let's order here, whatever it is, right? Like you're doing this good build-up.
Yeah.
And then you get home and you probably tidy up, right? Because
Sure.
You
want to like make good impressions, right? You care what they think still.
Right. yeah. So, you put the dirty dishes away, you pick up those nasty socks.
Exactly.
Sitting by
A
the
quick
bed.
vacuum.
Yeah. All of it. You might spritz something, maybe you light a candle. I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe you order the food that your partner really likes.
Yeah.
And then your partner comes over and you're both really giddy, right? Like you've probably showered, I hope.
I hope so.
You put some cologne on or perfume or lotion, whatever.
Yeah.
And you've created this whole environment to really connect. And so I like to use that example as think about that. Like when you're talking about creating a love map, remember what it was like in those first couple of months, maybe a year into dating, when you took the time to really create the entire context.
I love that.
In order for it to be a good night, regardless of if you ended up having sex or not.
Yeah.
You guys were, connecting in some way.
Exactly.
And that allowed, and it was the context that really helped with that. And I think sometimes couples forget that.
No, they do.
But that's for a different podcast because.
But I love what you're
sex
saying.
therapy.
They're prioritizing the relationship. They're nourishing the relationship. Yeah. It's intentional. I think over time people fall into comfort, and I think there is something beautiful about being comfortable.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, we need to continue to nourish the relationship. I think you can attest to this, but a lot of the couples we see are those that are no longer nourishing the relationship
100%.
like you talked about from the beginning of the relationship. Yeah.
And a lot of times when I use that example, you can see their faces change, right? Like it's just this sort of aha, like, oh yeah, I remember, like, feeling a little giddy and excited.
Putting the effort in, caring. Yeah.
I showered. Like,
right?
So I think when you put it into that context, so it does help. Because I mean, when you're doing that, you're also thinking, well, what does my partner like?
Yeah, you're thinking about that.
Yeah, you're thinking about them. Yep. It's definitely a we instead of an I mentality.
Absolutely. It's all connected.
It's all connected.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So love maps. They're really important. I think people don't, like, they take them for granted, right? Like people are naming what they're doing. Like in those beginning times, like these are just things that we do for the most part. I don't think we're intentionally thinking, we have to build strong love maps.
Right. Yeah.
No, but like therapy can tell you what you're doing well as well. So in my premarital sessions, a lot of time it's not telling them what they're doing wrong. It's telling them what they're doing right so that they can keep doing it. They know what they're doing. Yeah. Because they're kind of just floating along and doing things organically, which is beautiful. But if you don't know what's working, how do you know what to keep doing?
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, I think that was really lovely said. Lovely said. Beautifully said.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, love maps.
Okay. Love them. Love them.
Right. Okay. So do we leave it there and talk more about the other two, like the other levels later, or do we keep going?